I would like to ask some advice about building a secure attachment style while being single. Have any of you been through that? Any suggestions? I'm on the 7th month since a breakup and I still feel triggered by thoughts about my ex. The relationship, toxic, critical thinking about myself, longing, some days having the fantasy of getting back together. But the truth is I want to be myself and love myself regardless of the relationship. I want to feel good being single and start to accept myself and to recognize my own needs. If I go back with an ex or start a new relationship, I would like to be aware of my boundaries and needs because I don't want to experience it again and again, the same old pattern. Okay, it's a great question. Okay. This may just be my own personal experience, and inevitably it is, but I think that there's no like hard and fast rule about how you develop your own boundaries and find more of a sense of security within yourself. Meaning whether you have to be in relationship to someone or whether you are single or have to be single. I think it just depends on your temperament and how well you can discover, source, and find your own boundaries, whether you're in the context of a relationship or not. In my own personal experience, it was a lot easier when I was single to accomplish this. So it's interesting to me. It's almost as if you're asking the question, like, is it even possible while you're single? For me, it's been more, oh my God, is that even possible in relationship? So that's kind of interesting. I think it may be that there's a temperamental aspect to that. But I absolutely believe, yes, it's possible. The other thing you mentioned, okay, advice about building a secure attachment style. So first, I would have you think about, of course, these things are going to mean something different to everyone on some level, but I would have you think about what is a secure attachment to you? What, for you, when you say the words secure attachment, what are you attaching to that definition, right? So you would probably want to go through what you value. And one of the ways that you can do that is you can take a look at what were some of the points of contrast and contention in these previous relationships. What and where were the areas that you felt were painful? What were the areas in which you felt, oh, I wish they wouldn't do that, or I wish they would do this instead, and to start to create kind of an inventory of those things. And of course, this isn't to say that you have to blame the other partner for not being any of these things that you want, but also, to become, that's part of also discerning your boundaries, like having the vision of what it is that you really want, the essence of what it is that you really want. Because sometimes you'll ask people, what do you want in a relationship? And then they'll start to read you a litany of the things that went wrong with the last one, but they're not focusing on the vision of what they actually do want. And there's this sort of expectation, well, I'll know it when I see it. The problem with that is you're always sort of at the mercy of the conditions around you. And the thing is that, law of attraction will still work for you, and it will send you more and more relationships to help you become more and more discerning about what you want. But the less effort you put into naming and claiming, envisioning that, the more painful relationships you'll have until you name and claim that. So part of it is taking a look at where you've been so that you can have a better vision of where you want to go. The other part of that is then having the sense of bringing that into residence within yourself, because as is within, so is without. And so if you can hold that feeling place of to be a little cliche, becoming the change you want to see, then that's how you call it in. And the only way you can do that is if you create a kind of inventory of the things that you value in relationship, and they could be things that you would view as secure, right? Incidentally, people are at different stages of readiness for that. It doesn't make them more or less enlightened or expanded or whatever, in the way that you wouldn't expect a toddler to salsa dance before they even have learned how to crawl or walk, right? It doesn't make that child more or less, enlightened. That's just where they are in their process. So some people feel like, well, I value this, this, and this, but then they'll say something like, oh, but I say I don't want drama in my relationship, but then when the relationship becomes too regular, routine, or boring, I create drama in my relationship, and that makes me excited about it again, right? And so then they're like, so am I really valuing drama even though I say I don't want it? That's a process of taking a look at how you are responding to things, how your synaptic pathways have been created. And then, some people, they have to experience that enough until they feel as though, okay, I've hit a threshold and I'm done with that. Some people don't reach that threshold so easily. And that's okay. You can't push somebody to be where they are in their process of expansion until they're ready to be there. And they will let you know, because they will know. And then that's when you start stepping into the processes like the ones that we talk about here in this group and also in my online courses, right? That process of bringing the head and the heart into a state of integration where you're ready to let go of the drama, and you're ready to sort of commit your time, energy, and effort towards shifting your synaptic pathways because you've just reached a threshold with it, right? And that's just kind of, unfortunately, that's kind of the way we start to change, is that we have oftentimes, transformation is stimulated through something that is painfully catalytic, but it doesn't have to be. And I think that sometimes people will go through that process and then they'll reach a place where they're like, I want to continue to change and transform and grow and expand and fill up my circumference, but I don't want it to be sourced from a place of pain. But we question that because so much of what we're conditioned to believe is that, that our pain is romantic and that it means something and that we have to earn love and we have to earn the pleasurable things that we have. And that's an ideology that we have to learn how to step out of. It's all about the mindset reset stuff, because you can change from a place of inspiration versus a place of fear and suffering and or struggle. Fear, suffering, struggle can induce change, like the way we just talked about, being catalyzed to change because I'm just not going to take it anymore. But it can also be sourced from a place of being inspired, from a place of creativity, right? From wanting to contribute something. That's also something that can be equally as catalytic. And if you can move into a place where that is as stimulating for you as it is to wrestle with the self-sacrifice and the pain and needing to earn things, then you'll find a shift in your quality of life. And I would say you would probably also find a deeper sense of faith in the universe. The other thing I wanted to mention about this question, I get triggered by thoughts of my ex and toxic critical thinking about myself. There's something I want to say about the word trigger. People use the word trigger a lot. What do you mean by triggered? Right? So triggered, when people say triggered, they are often saying, I'm having a feeling. I'm having a feeling that's hard, that I don't want to feel. And so I'm going to push it away again. But when we say the word triggered, we're sort of saying, here's this feeling that just will not be pushed away. And I'm pissed off about it. And I want to get rid of this feeling any way that I can. And so when you say things like they trigger me, really you want to ask yourself, are you just avoiding your feelings? Are you just too afraid to lean into that feeling and to look at what is that feeling trying to communicate to you? If there are intrusive thoughts about an ex, specifically critical thinking, then there may be a part of you that's asking you to look at this critical thinking that you have. Can you lean into the critical thinking? Where is that critical thinking coming from? What are you doing to pay attention to it and to work with it? What part of you lies beneath that layer of critical thinking that is saying, please look at this thinking and please process it so that I can come out, because it's like locked me in here and I want to come out. So I need you to acknowledge this critical aspect of yourself so I can become integrated into you as a whole, and you can now step into a place where you're accepting me. Oh, but if we just call it being triggered and then try to find some resource to get rid of the feeling or to suppress it or bury it or ignore it for a while so you can just feel a momentary relief, that's kind of a short-term escape. And it's kind of like, the messenger comes and knocks on the door. If you ignore the messenger, it's just going to knock harder, right? Now that's something I've noticed a lot about people who talk about being triggered. I don't know if that's your circumstance. Truly being triggered is kind of like a true trigger is when you're sent into a flashback. It's like it's a sensorial experience that is embedded in your amygdala, and you are quite literally in that time and place and from a past experience. Sensorially, psychically, you believe, think, feel that you are there. So, and that's not to say that maybe that doesn't happen for you, but I would just maybe have you raise a little bit of awareness around and not just for the person who's asking this question, but I'm sure a lot of other people have the same kind of approach. Just to think about when you start using words like, oh my God, I'm triggered. Try to think about maybe replacing that with, oh, I'm having a difficult feeling. And rather than saying, what can I do to fix this triggered feeling, might say, I'm wondering about this feeling. And I'm noticing that it's somewhere in my body right now. And if I go and I touch that part of my body and I go into it, oh yeah, that's where it is. And ooh, that feels like a dark, murky feeling. And I'm really curious about what that feeling is trying to tell me. Because when you have a feeling, this is the voice of your inner being. In the way that I approach these things, some might refer to it as your unconscious self, some might refer to it as your wounded inner child. But there's a part of yourself that is looking to have a conversation with you. And, the way I think of it, it kind of works is that your soul, your essence, your inner being, your higher knowing, whatever you want to call it, basically is responding to some thought that you're having, some perception you're having, some way that you are moving through the world. And it's saying, whatever it is that you are subconsciously putting into action here isn't true. So if you're having a toxic critical thought, you may have internalized this ex-boyfriend as being the point of focus for that toxic critical thinking, because as we mentioned in the previous question, he's carrying a kernel of that. So this is not to say that when you say this partner is a toxic and critical person, there's an element of that in that person, but now you've taken it in, right? And it may be that you are attracted to that person for all the good things that they reflect in you, but also for some of the bad things that they reflect in you. And so maybe his criticism are stimulated and brought up within you and brought to your attention your own critical inner voice. And so where does that come from? Where does it reside in your body? And how can you now start to organize that? So you learn where and how that has protected you, and then you give it a new job. So for example, how could a critical voice be protecting you? These are questions you want to ask yourself. How has this feeling protected me? Even if it's an icky feeling, it's protecting you from something. Icky feelings, you have them because it's trying to direct you away from something that it thinks is not good for you. So if you've been taught, for example, that drama is good in your relationships, or you've been taught that that certain things are dangerous, like love and intimacy, then your subconscious limiting beliefs will create icky feelings to protect you from what it thinks is a threat. Okay. And so unless you go in and you start to talk to and find out where that icky feeling came from, and let that icky feeling know, you don't have to protect me like that anymore. I'm not a child anymore, and I'm not in that relationship anymore. And it's okay. It doesn't mean just because that was the situation then that it has to be the situation now. And it doesn't mean that the world isn't full of an abundant source of resources of love and affection and attention and success for us. It's just, that's an erroneous belief, and we have to let go of that. Okay. So to bring this all back, if you find yourself feeling like you're triggered by something, I would encourage you, instead of trying to move away or escape that feeling, to try to lean into it and find out what's the part of you that's looking to be integrated there. I want to be myself and love myself regardless. Yes. So that's the process that we're talking about. I do a lot of demos of ways you can put this into practice on my YouTube channel. If you go to the playlist for spirituality and attachment, I would recommend checking that out. Also, I happen to be running a special right now on my 7-week self-directed online course. It's called Healing Attachment Wounds with Mindfulness and Creative Arts Therapies. It's 76% off right now until the end of December. And the whole 7-week curriculum is all the ways in which I would encourage you how to lean into your feelings and to integrate the parts of yourself that they are representing, instead of escaping into short-term escapes and saying, I'm triggered, I need to get away from this.